respectable man. He's a representative in the state of New Hampshire for Carroll County District 2, and he's also a retired U.S. Marine Major from, I think the dates are right, 1956 to 1986. Please help me welcome Representative Frank McCarthy. Thank you, sir.
President, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
I'm awed with this group. I really am. Where do I start? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a biography of mine. I was born some 80 years ago in Brooklyn, New York. I had two brothers a few years later in World War II who were in the military. One was in the Pacific. He never came home. And one was in Europe. He came home with half a leg. But every day, my family, I had 10 brothers and sisters, including the two that were in the military at the time. Every day we had to come in the house and sit around the radio and listen to the news broadcast of World War II. Anybody remember the name Gabriel Heater? Dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. What does that mean? That's Morse code for SOS. And then he would say, "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. There's bad news tonight." And then he'd go on with the news. Well, every single day, all of my siblings, my mother and father, would be there listening to that. And because of that, I made up my mind at that very young age, 7 or 8, that I was going to make the military a career. Why? Because I thought my brothers were the supermen of the world. They were in Europe, and they were in the Pacific, and they were saving mankind. And it's actually true. That's what they were doing. But I decided then and there that I was going to go in the military. So as soon as I finished high school, that's what I did. I went in the military at the age of 17. Actually, I lied about my age. I went in the Army National Guard when I was 14. But when I finished high school, I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17. I put 30 years in the Marine Corps. I went from private to all of the enlisted ranks. And I became a warrant officer, went through all of the warrant officer ranks. And then I became a commissioned officer and retired with the rank of major. Without a college education, I might add. I did 41 months in Vietnam. I was wounded several times. I was decorated on 3 occasions. My last tour, my job was to go around searching for MIAs and POWs and trying to free them from captivity or bring home the remains of whomever we found. We brought back 4 from North Vietnam, 2 from Laos, 2 from Cambodia, and 2 from China. And when I retired from the Marine Corps, I thought life was going to be easy, and I just couldn't take the easy life, so I went into politics. Anyway, let's get into. There's one idiosyncrasy. I have both Constitution. This is the state of New Hampshire. I'm sorry if most of you are from Maine. I don't know which state, Maine or New Hampshire, but I'm more up on the New Hampshire Constitution. I'll have to admit that. But there's one idiosyncrasy with the New Hampshire Constitution that is not found in any other constitution anywhere in the world. Anybody know what that is? I know Isaac does, but don't you answer. Anybody know what that is? The citizens of New Hampshire have the right to rebellion. And let me see if I can find it here. Article 10, the right to revolution. Government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right ought to, reform the old or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. That is Article 10 of the first part, the Bill of Rights of the New Hampshire Constitution. Just before that is being a representative of the state of New Hampshire. Article 8 is most important to me. And let me tell you read Article 8 for you, and you understand why, as a member of the House of Representatives, Article 8 is so important to me. This is all telling, this article. I think it's one of the most important articles of the entire New Hampshire Constitution. All power residing originally in and being derived from the people. All power originates with the people and is derived from the people. All the magistrates and officers of government are their substitutes and agents to act in their stead. That's what I do. I am the agent of the people to act in their stead. I represent, if you figure out numbers, in District 2 in Carroll County, I represent approximately 3,680, somewhere along in there, individuals. So when I vote down in Concord or even in Ossipee, because we wear two hats over there, when I vote, I'm actually casting 3,600 and some odd votes for the people that I represent. Government, therefore, should be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive. To that end, the people's right of access to government proceedings and records shall not be unreasonably restricted. Open, that's why we have 91A. You can go any part of the government, county, municipal, state, and say, I want to know this. I want every single word that was ever written, printed, or spoken relative to this. And the government is bound to give it to you. I know we've had a couple of times in the last, 2 years or so, where they wanted to make individuals pay for copies of that, but that's not in the Constitution, and so far they haven't gotten it. I'd also like to mention Article 1 of the New Hampshire Constitution, probably the second most important as far as I'm concerned. All men are born equally free and independent. Therefore, all government of right originates from the people, is founded in consent, and instituted for the general good. So you look at Article 1, and then you put that together with Article 8, and you'll see what my job is. There's one other idiosyncrasy, I think, that in the Constitution. Why do they call us, in the state of New Hampshire, a citizen legislature? How much do you think we get paid in New Hampshire? Would you believe $100 a year? That's it. And it's in the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire that the representatives will be paid $100 a year. And it's been in there since 1784. and we haven't gotten a raise since 1784, because nobody has the gumption to fight the citizens and ask for a raise by amending the Constitution. $100 a year, that's it. That's why we're a citizen legislature. And personally, I think it's a good thing. You know, you go down to Washington, the swamp, or whatever you want to call it, and what do you have? You got hordes of lawyers and people with all kinds of money, and anybody that has money, what do they want? More money. And that's what happens down there. We don't have that in New Hampshire. We have people that are retired nurses, retired teachers. A lot of them are retired because, you know, it's almost impossible to be a member of the House or the Senate in New Hampshire and hold down a big job. It's almost impossible. So a lot of them are retirees, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and they do, in my opinion, a pretty good job for $100 a year. You know, we go down there during a snowstorm, and we've got a session in the next morning, and what happens? Can't get home. I got to stay down there. It costs me $100 a night. One night, my entire year's salary is shot. If I have enough time, I'd like to talk about something that might be a little controversial, Mr. President. At the beginning, at the ceremony, what did we do? We all stood, put our hand over our heart, and recited the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, if you look at the federal Constitution, it'll state in there, give me a second to find it, Article 6, who shall take constitutional oaths? The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. So you take an oath of office, and once you take it, you never have to take it again. But also, if you take it and disavow it, you can never take it again. How many have read the book or are familiar with the book Unfit for Command by John Kerry, our former Secretary of State? Well, just to illustrate how that works, John Kerry, there are 80 pages of his military records that are missing. Not missing, but they haven't been made public. Why? They covered his court-martial and discharge from the United States Navy. Nobody knows what the discharge was because everything has been hidden. But we do know this. It had to be bad. Why? Because when he got home, he wanted to run for the Senate in Massachusetts, and he couldn't because his court-martial found that he had disavowed his oath. It was an other than honorable discharge, I can tell you that. But I don't know exactly. There's 15, 20 different discharges you can get in the military. But anyway, in order for him to run for the Senate in the state of Massachusetts the first time, he had to get a pardon from President Carter to be able to run for the Senate and take the oath of office again, because he disavowed it the first time he took it as a United States naval officer. So now, and the reason I bring this up is we have one or two representatives in the state of New Hampshire who refuse to pledge allegiance to the flag. But you're not pledging allegiance to the flag. What does it say? You pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. Well, it's not just the flag. And we have a couple that refuse to do it. They will not put their hand over their heart. Same thing as the football players. But there's a difference. Football players never took an oath. Members of the legislature took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of New Hampshire. Now, how can you defend the Constitution and do the job you're supposed to do and then say, I will not pledge allegiance? Aren't they both the same things? So if you take an oath to be a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, I think it's almost imperative that you have to pledge allegiance to the flag every time you're supposed to. And we do it every time we open a session in Concord. We pledge allegiance to the flag and then sing the national anthem. But there are two who just sit there. So I'm just wondering, should they have to pay the same price that John Kerry had to pay? So I'll leave you with that. But anyway, there's one final thing I'd like to mention, and that is upcoming very soon, we're going to be voting, and there's also a state constitutional amendment that will be voted on. Are you familiar with it in the state of New Hampshire, the amendment, the constitutional amendment that has come up? Let me give you a little background on it. It used to be that if a citizen saw something wrong in government, people were spending money illegally, whether it be your municipal government, your county government, state government. Those individuals could go and sue the municipality, the county, or the state and say, hey, the law says you can't do that. Well, for some reason, not too long ago, the Supreme Court of the state of New Hampshire said, no, those citizens don't have standing because they can't prove that it had an effect on them personally. So even though a law was broken and money was being spent illegally in violation of law, the citizens had no recourse. There was nothing they could do about it. Well, this amendment changed that, and I'm 100% for it. And let me just read it to you. Remember Article 8 that I read earlier? This will be addended to Article 8. The public also has a right to an orderly, lawful, and accountable government. Therefore, any individual taxpayer eligible to vote in the state shall have standing to petition the Superior Court to declare whether the state or political subdivision in which the taxpayer resides has spent or has approved spending public funds in violation of a law, ordinance, or constitutional provision. That's the amendment to the Constitution, and I hope, beyond hope, that it passes. I wish I could stand up here for a longer time. I just love this. I really do. And I want to thank you for inviting me, Isaac, especially, and please do it again whenever you have a chance, and I'll be more prepared.